heroes and there are legends. Heroes come and go. Legends never die. We usually say that you cannot become a legend before death. These are living legends. If the legends fall silent, who will teach the children of our ways? Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, brought to you by Titan Sensor, is proud to present The Legends. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches Podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, the Legends Series, and I've got a special guest with us today. Won 164 games as a head coach, took 3 different teams to the quarterfinals or further, and in the coaching profession amongst his peers, he's considered one of the true gentlemen of the game. Coach Sam Bars, thanks for being with me today.
Man, it's my pleasure.
Well, Coach, as I do with everybody, start with telling everybody where you grew up and went to high school.
Well, I grew up in Cochran, Georgia, and went to Middle Georgia there, and then went to University of Georgia, and then got into coaching.
So where did you actually go to high school? Was it Blakely County High School then?
It was Cochran High School then. And after I left, they consolidated the county and the city and made it Blakely County. So
when you were in high school, did you play just football or did you play a little bit of everything?
Oh, no, I played I tried to do everything. I just loved sports, and it didn't matter. Whatever season was in, I liked it. But football was my favorite, and I played basketball, and I was a sophomore. I was lucky enough to make the team, and we won the state championship my sophomore year, and that was something special. And then I ran track in high school, and I, you know what, I didn't think I'd like it. Track. I was going to track because the track coach wanted me to, so I tried it and I enjoyed it. So that was kind of my deal. I wish I'd played a little baseball now too. I wish you turn back the page and you say, I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have done that. Well, I wish I'd have played a little baseball.
So did you have an opportunity to play college ball, or did you just go on to college?
I had I wanted to, but I wasn't very big. I was probably tougher than, I was like a little puppy that would fight anybody, at the time. But I wasn't super good, but I had a little scholarship offered from a prep school up in Tennessee called TMI, Tennessee Military Institute. And my coach got it for me, and he said, okay, here's the itinerary. And I said, okay. And I looked at the itinerary, and they woke up at 5:30 and started their day, and it was lights out at 9:30. I said, do what? and I said, no, I'm going to Middle Georgia.
Yeah, probably wasn't no girls there either.
No, there wasn't. And that didn't bother me as much as that getting up and going to bed that early. That was unbelievable to me. But anyway, I decided to go the other route. And, I truly believe this. God will put things in your life, and he's going to direct you where he needs you to go, where your path needs to be. And I truly believe that. And he had me on a different path, and it's worked out good for me.
So you went to Middle Georgia, and, did you always know you wanted to teach and coach, or did you get in the wrong line? Or, how'd that major work out?
Well, I started out in pre-law, and then I went to accounting. And I liked the accounting part of it, but my high school football coach, they started midget football, what we call Mighty Mike football here in Cochran. And there were 4 teams, and he called me up one day and said, I need another coach. Would you coach a team? And I said, well, I got to ask my dad, because I had a little job after in the afternoons. He said, as long as it didn't, mess up your job. And it worked out where it didn't. So I took it, and I didn't get to pick the team, but luckily my brother was on the team. He was younger than me, a lot younger. He's 8 years younger than me. Anyway, he was on that team and all his buddies. Well, I took him and we won the championship. And I caught it. Whatever it is, I caught it. And I was hooked. From that point on, I went and changed my major and got into physical education, and I finished there at Middle Georgia and went on to Georgia and went back and got my master's at Georgia. And the rest is history. I'm just telling you, I fell in love with it, and I never fell out of love with it.
So what was your first job out of college? You remember?
Heck yeah. I got a job at Tabor's Junior High, which was a feeder middle school, junior high, to Northside High School. And I was the 8th grade coach for 2 years, and I was a 9th grade coach for 1 year. And they had a middle school AD, and I was the AD the third year there.
So who was the head high school coach there?
Conrad Nix.
Oh, so you started out under a legend yourself.
I did. I tell people this all the time. There are a lot of things that, Conrad did that I didn't do, but it wasn't because I disagreed with it. I just didn't do them. I wanted to kind of do my own thing. And he taught all of us, everybody that coached with him and coached under him. He taught us a lot. I scouted for him. I was in the middle school, so I scouted for him. Me and 2 other guys would go scouting on Friday night or Saturday night, whatever games play. And they were in that Warner Robins, and it was all the Columbus schools, so we'd go to Columbus about every week scouting. But I learned a lot of things I did and taught were things that I learned from Conrad.
So your first job, you started at what we would say is the bottom. You started at middle school like you were supposed to.
I started at the bottom, and I tell you, I wanted to get into high school, and I finally kind of broke the ice. And you know what? It was 10 times better than middle school. Now I love the middle school or junior high, it was called back then. I love that level, but I wanted to be on the high school level. I wanted to experience the Friday night bands, the pep rallies, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I fell in love with it and stayed that way the rest of my career.
Well, what was your first opportunity after Tabor Middle School?
Well, I came to it was Cochran High School at the time, and I stayed there 3 years. And
who was the head coach?
Jimmy Kilpatrick, and Jimmy was a solid, good football coach. Smart, boy, man, was very intelligent. I learned a lot from him, and but I wanted to move up. I wanted to get different ideas. So I interviewed for a couple of jobs and didn't get them. And a friend called me one night I was in the bed, got up, answered the phone. He said, "Look, a friend of mine just got the job at Fayette County. His name was Charlie Winslet." And I didn't know Charlie. And so I went to the interview and loved it. Loved Charlie. And I coached with Charlie for 2 years. And I had a blast with him. And that is a smart guy. One of the smartest people I've ever been around.
Yeah, I had Coach Wins on. He was the second episode we did in the Legend series. And,
right.
Papa Wins is something else now. He's a whole nother.
I'm telling you, man, he's a mess.
He's a whole
I can
nother.
tell you some Charlie Winslet stories.
He's a whole nother dude.
You wouldn't believe. Oh, he is. He is. But people look at him, and he's a big old round guy, and you would think he was any kind of athlete. But that rascal, we played pickup basketball as coaches, and I'll tell you this right now. I would take him any day. That cat can play. And then he never played golf. And very often he plays, but he never plays very often. we go play golf, and I thought myself a decent golfer. Well, I shoot like 44, 45. He shoots 41, and he played in 3 years. I mean, he was a heck of an athlete. People don't know that about him, but he really is. He was unbelievable, really. But he was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of football from him, and I got to coach with some great guys and learned a lot. Just every place I went, I'll use the word steal from ideas from them. I was trying to form my own opinion about things, but I would pluck things that I really liked, and I'd kind of mesh them together to try to build my own thought process for putting a football program together. And Charlie was a blessing.
So you were there for 2 years. So you got to coach against Max Bass and that whole region. That was a rough region back then.
Woo, man! You talking about a tough region? Max Bass. We played them, and we upset them at their place one night. And Max Bass had 3 guys in his backfield of Simon, Alabama. They ran to Wishbone, and all of them were 4-4 or 4-5, and we upset them. Beat them. I think it was 10-6 or 14-6, something like that. And it was a major upset, and it was a gauntlet. And I'll tell you somebody that was good back then too. Wayman Sellers was the head coach at Jonesboro, and he really had some good football teams. And we played them, and we played some really good football teams. We sure did. We played Griffin. Griffin had Lloyd Bohannon was the coach there, which is Brian Bohannon, who was just the head coach at Kennesaw State, his dad. And we go up and play them, and they had Ricky, I think the guy's name was Ricky Williams. He played at Tennessee, a wide receiver. He had Freddie Gilbert on that team. He had a big tackle who went to Auburn, and some what was the other kid's name? Golly, but anyway, like Freddie Gilbert, people don't know this. He won the state in the high hurdles. That's the kind of athlete he was. We all played at Georgia and was great. Wally Butts, his grandson was the kicker for Griffin that year. So we played some really good competition, really good teams. Sure did.
So after Fayette County, where did you end up going?
Well, it's a funny thing. I was at a Georgia football game, and I was in a fraternity at Georgia when I was there, and one of my fraternity brothers, who was a Cochran boy, he saw me. He came down and he said, "Look, I'm starting my own real estate company. I want you to come work for me." And I said, "Buddy, I don't know. I like coaching and I'm enjoying it." He said, "Well, you get in here, you go to work, you make you some real good money." So Debbie and I talked about it, and I told Debbie, I said, "Deb, I love coaching and I really do, and I can always come back to it. But if I don't take it," I was 30 years old. I said, "If I don't take a chance on this, we may never have a chance to make good money." We took a chance, and I passed the real estate exam and got going, and I was making good money compared to a football coach. I can tell you that. And I was leading the company in sales when I quit, but I missed football. I missed it. I missed kids. I missed the relationships. I missed everything. Friday nights, everything. And so I decided to get back in it, and I started calling contacts and all. And my wife's father was sick, and so we had to come back. They lived in Cochran too, so we had to come back down in this area. And I can't remember. Good gracious, this makes me so mad. Who was the coach at Buford back in those days? Do you remember?
Was it Dexter Wood?
No, it was before Dexter.
Before Dexter? Oh, God, I don't know.
Well thought of guy. Well, he calls me out of the blue and says, "I got a job. I want you to have it." I didn't even know him. I'd met him one time in a handshake in a crowd. I mean, he didn't know me from Adam's House Cat. But Max Bass had recommended me to him. And he called me up and he said, "If Max Bass recommends you, I'll hire you. The job's yours. This is at Buford. And they were rocking and rolling in Class B at that time. And they were very good back then, too. So I had to turn it down and come back down to Dodge County. And Lee Forehand had just gotten a head job there at Dodge County. And I learned a lot from Lee. Man, he was talking about a hard nose and a tough guy. He was tough. His kids, we didn't have 28 kids, but I promise you this, they would light you up. And one thing I learned about him was coaching toughness. And he wasn't a great X and O guy, but buddy, he knew how to coach toughness. You wasn't going to beat him on toughness. You had to out-athlete him. And we never lost a game because they were tougher than us. I can tell you that. But he was a good one. I stayed with him for 2 years, and after that I went to Chris County as a defensive coordinator under Buddy Cox. Farrell Henry was the coach, and his daughter had just passed away. She had an asthmatic attack, and listen to this, at a high school football game, and she passed away. And he got out of coaching. He was the AD and assistant principal. Well, Buddy Cox was the defensive coordinator, and he hired me. And we had gone at Dodge County. We'd been going against Chris County, and also I knew those guys, and I'd followed them, and I knew how good they were. They were really good. So I go over there with Buddy, and then Buddy leaves after 2 years, and I get the job. That's where I started my head coaching at Chris County High School.
So what was your first head coaching job like that very first year?
It was kind of hard. I was a defensive coordinator, and my defensive kids were tough. Because I'd kind of taken I tell you about Lee Forehand. He had talked, and I learned the toughness from him and Charlie Winslow. So I just kind of put that together, and they were tough. But when I got over and running, I jumped from offense to defense, and I gave the defense coordinator's job to Clay Hill. God rest his soul. He just passed away last Thursday, and that is a fine guy, by the way. But anyway, I gave it to Clay because Clay was on the defensive side with me, and then I took over and was running the offense. And the kids just wouldn't respond. They just wasn't tough. And I'm sitting there saying, how are they not tough, the whole football team? So I went through a kind of a down period, and we had a bunch of seniors that year, and they graduated. Well, the next year we go 2-8, and I tell people this story. We won 2 ball games. I don't know the 2 teams that we beat, but they were pathetic because we were awful. And somehow we won 2 football games, and I don't know how we did, to be honest with you. And the next year, I started turning the screws, and the next year we were 4-6, and the 4-6 year we started out with like 67 kids, and I ended the season up with 42. But I was bound and determined I was going to have toughness coming in, and so we turned it around. And of course, from then on, I hit a streak there. I went 92, 2 or 3 years, in quarterfinals in one of those years, and playoffs every year after that, and had a nice run there. Had some great athletes, really super athletes come through there.
So you get on that good run at Cordele and get it done like you want it, and get them tough and have some success. So where did you parlay that into?
Well, I got a call. Dublin had gone through a racial deal there at Dublin High School, and the coach had done something wrong, and they ended up getting rid of him, and they couldn't even hardly get anybody to interview. And Rodney Walker had worked for the superintendent there, and he called Rodney and said, "I need some help. Give me a name of a guy." He said, "I'll tell you a good one." And Rodney gave him my name. Well, he called me, and we didn't get together. The first time we didn't get together, they wanted to give me a $3,000 raise. And I looked at him and I said, you wouldn't move your family across this state for $3,000. I can't even recoup the move for that, And I said, I got this program rolling here at Cordell. I'm just not going to walk away from it for that. And so he said, well, if you change your mind, you call me. And I said, well, if you change your mind, you call me. Well, 3 or 4 days later, I got a phone call from him. Said the board wants to meet you at Natalia's Restaurants in Macon, which was a really nice restaurant. And they got me up there and wined and dined me. And it's a story I've told. And on the way up there, I told my wife, I said, Debbie, they're not carrying us up here now to just talk to us. They're going to, if we work this thing out, it's going to be worked out tonight. Now, are you willing to go to Dublin? Yes. I said, if you're satisfied with it, I'll be satisfied with it. I said, okay. So we got up there, and I had written down, you know what a legal pad is. Everybody knows what a legal pad is. Well, this was extra long legal pads. I had 7 sheets of legal pads written down of things I had to have, itemized everything. And we got there, and they said, let us see it. So I gave it to them, and there were 4 board members there, and the superintendent, his wife, and my wife, and me. We sat on one end of the table while the 4 board members went down that list of things. And they would stop and ask me a question, and they'd go back to the list, and they were making notes and all that kind of thing. And finally, the chairman said, whoa, wait a minute. And of course, the superintendent and I stopped talking, and I looked at him and I said, if we do everything on this list, you'll be the next coach at Dublin High School. I said, if you do everything on that list, I want it in writing in my contract, but I promise you I'll be your football coach at Dublin. And they said, okay. And 2 or 3 years before that, they had lost a coach, and they had hired Alton Shell from Americas. He had agreed to come to Dublin. And in the meantime, Alton changes his mind. Well, they'd gone ahead and announced it. And without any official type deal, well, Alton backed out on. Well, the first thing they brought up was that. Now, you're not going to change your mind, because we had this happen a few years ago. We got mud on our face. It made us look not very sharp. I said, it's a matter of integrity. My dad taught me, if you give a man your word, you do it. You have my word. And so when I go back and tell my superintendent principal at Cordell, they both said, no, the chairman of the board called me and said, we'll match what Dublin's doing. I said, no, I'm not going to get in a bid war. Because if you ever get in, these young coaches don't understand this. They think you get in a bid war with 2 schools, you're going to win. This is what happens. You got your hometown trying to keep you. Well, they counter. All right. Now, when you finally accept one or the other, the home people say, well, all he did was got his money up over at the other school. Or either you stay at that school and you get a bump in your raise. Well, all he did was use that against us to get a raise. And you make people mad. And of course, the other town's saying, well, all he did is use us to get a raise over in Chris County. So I went back. I told him, I said, look, I've given him my word. That's it. I'm going. And I never looked back. I never looked back. Because once you make your decision, if you're doing it the right way and looking at things and checking everything out, you pretty much know you've got it pegged. And if it's the right situation, and the good Lord, Debbie and I talked about it, and we prayed about it, and the good Lord put us there and aimed us in the right direction, and it worked out. We had some great years at Dublin.
And how many years were you at Dublin? I
was there 13 years, and I was 11 as the head football coach and AD. And played for the state championship in '94. Got beat by Thomas County Central in their three-peat they had going. And it was we had some really good runs. Got to the quarterfinals, oh golly, 2 or 3 times. 3 times. Should have won 2 of them. Didn't happen, and that's my opinion. Like that other coach probably saying, yeah, we beat y'all, but that's just the way it is.
That's right.
That's the way coaches talk and think anyway. So I had a good run, and boy, some really good athletes. Whoo-wee. I was blessed.
So after Dublin, what did you end up doing after Dublin?
All right, I retired and I worked in the board office for 2 years. I was a maintenance and operations guy. And you talking about a great job, then that was a great job. All I had to do was look after facilities, and I'd looked after football fields and all that, but I never looked after buildings. And I had my maintenance crews that worked for me, and I enjoyed that job. I really enjoyed it. But then I decided to retire, and I was going to do something because I had a son in college. My daughter wasn't quite ready to go to college yet, so I had to do something. So I took a job in the prison system, and all that was God putting me somewhere that I needed to find out I didn't need to be. I'm telling y'all, I would never work in. Some of the guys have had. I just didn't. I hated it. I don't like being around evil, and those people in those places are evil. I saw some things that it would blow your mind how nasty these people were. But I was there a year. And I said, I told Debbie, I said, I'm going to find a coaching job somewhere. If I have to do as assistant, I'll just do an assistant, And, but I can't stand this. And it wasn't a matter of, after Debbie and I talked, it wasn't a matter of 5 6 days. And Richard Smith, the principal here at Bleckley, called me. And I had talked to him once and didn't get the job. And I told him, I said, I don't want to go through this dog and pony show again. I'm not interested. I just don't. He said, no, Sammy, you're the guy. You're the guy we want to hire. We're not interviewing anybody till you tell me no. I said, okay. Now, y'all willing to do some things that's going to help turn this program around? Because Blackley, you've heard the reputation. Blackley, it was what we call a roach job. He was dead on his back with his legs sticking up. It was a bad situation. So I came in and got it going and ended up beating the Fitzgerald in the quarters one year. No, in the first round. First round. We were the fourth place team and they were the first place team, and we beat them. And anyway. Went on and played Savannah Christian and beat them and got beat by Lovett. And Lovett played in the Dome the next week. So we did some good things here. I had some really good coaches. And I was fortunate that it bailed me out of a bad situation and got me to a place that I still live here in Cochran. I love the place. So, how you not like your hometown, it's just the way it is. And I've enjoyed moving back and living here.
So what did you do after your time at Bleckley?
I retired. If you wanna see what sandbars looks like, look up "sorry" in the dictionary and have a picture of me in there. I'm playing some golf and I'm piddling my yard and whatever else I want to do.
Didn't you go to Trinity Christian for a little bit?
I did. I did that. Let's see. I was retired. I had retired and come back. And Buddy Woodard, who was my defensive coordinator at Dublin, he was the head coach at Trinity. And he called me, and I said, Buddy, I don't know if I want to get into it or not, back into it or not. And he said, well, come over and let's just talk. I hadn't seen you in a while. We'll just talk. I said, I tell you what, we'll just go get a sandwich or something and just talk old times. He said, all right. So we got there, and the more we talked, the more I kind of enthused with it. And he said, look, I'm going to give you your offense, and I'm going to get out of the way. It's yours. You do whatever you want to. I'm going to run the defense, and you run the offense. And that's the way we had done it at Dublin. That's basically what I told him at Dublin. Here's the defense we're going to run. It's yours. And that's the way we did it. And we got beat 2 years. Well, Buddy's had 1 year. Then he left and got out of it. He retired, and it was late in the season, or late in the summer. And they asked me to take it, and I took it for a year. And we played in the semifinals. We played Valwood out of Valdosta, and they beat us. But good gracious, they were loaded. And they recruited. They recruited, but they were good. They were good. That's private school. You can do that. And they had gone out and got kids from Lowndes and Valdosta, and then Brooks County kids came up there, and they were loaded. I told that boy never to get out, never to leave there, because he could win 1,000,000 games down there. But he left, and he's done a good job where he was being. But anyway, to make a long story short, I was there for that year, and my dad was starting to go down a little bit and getting up in age. He was in his late 80s, and I decided I needed to help my sister look after him. So, and I was living in Cochran, driving back and forth to Dublin every day, so it wasn't like I had to move anywhere. So I got out of it and was helping my sister look after my dad, and yeah, here I'm retired and enjoying life.
So all of these places you went to, they were, is it fair to say they were rebuilds?
Cordell was a rebuild, even though I was there for 2 years. There was some major problems there with discipline, major problems. And the boy, I'm indebted to Cordell for people giving me a chance, but there was some discipline problems there. And I tell you, I started out with 67 kids and ended up with 42, and it was all discipline. They wouldn't do what you asked them to do. And I told them, I said, you got to do what I say, when I say, and how I say. If you can't do that, you can't be on this football team. And they would balk at running, or they would whatever. And anyway, I'd say, okay, clean the locker out. And there's a lot of them left there with lips poked out because I kicked them off the team. But, it's just the way it was. And everybody else was doing it except for them, So I got rid of the riffraff, and we brought in a bunch of young kids, and we built our program around them. And, the year that my third year there is when most of this happened. But, the year before, when we were 2-8, that's when most of it happened. But the third year there, we were 4-6, and we made the playoffs. Dublin had gotten caught with a community coach, which was illegal at the time, and so they called us on Tuesday. I'd taken up 10 or 15 uniforms doing PE during the day because our season was over. And they said, "Can you be ready to play on Friday night?" And I said, "Absolutely, we'll be ready to play." And we go over and we played back then. Number 4 played number 1. The 2 teams came out, okay, and Dublin had to scramble to beat us. Let me put it that way. But they beat us, and then but we the point I was making in that team was that when I got rid of those kids, we were 4-6 with a bunch of young kids, but they would do everything we asked them to do. Clay and I were we were a good team together, and the 4-6 year, the 6 losses we had in the regular season now, and counting the playoff games, so 70 games, we were 4-7 to the whole year. We lost 7 ball games, 5 of them by less than 6 points, and the other 2 were by 6 points. So we were in every ball game. We just young. You couldn't turn the corner, so to speak. And then the next years, those boys grew up. We went 9-2, 9-2, 11-2, I think it was, something like that. And then that's when I came to Dublin.
So when you went into these places, what was your number one thing that you were like, all right, this is what we got to do to get this ship sailing the way I want to go?
You have to look at top and bottom. And I looked at everything. I had a guy tell me one time in an interview, "Coach, your reputation is you hard to work for." And I kind of took offense to it. And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" He said, "Your reputation is that you're hard to work for." And I said, "Well, if doing things right and doing them right every day is hard to work for, then I guess I'm hard to work for. But I'm going to give you a responsibility. I'm going to tell you how I want it done. And that's on you. If you don't do it, I'm going to hold you responsible for it. And we're going to come in this office and we're going to sit down and we're going to get it fixed. And then we're going to go back out on that practice field and fix it." And when I looked at everything, a number of assistants, PE classes, weightlifting, the whole deal. And I had to analyze it. But the biggest thing, I'll stop. And the coaches, the young coaches that listen to this, when I was a young guy, you and I, our previous conversation talked about this. When I was a young guy, I studied all the winning coaches in the state. Bill Chappell up at Dalton, Dan Pitts at Mary Persons, Robert Davis at Warner Robins, Conrad Nix at Northside. And there was about 6 or 8 others that I studied around, Bobby Gruen at Gainesville. And I said, what do those guys got in common? There's something in common. Well, every one of them ran different defenses and different offenses. I said, well, it ain't the offense or the defense that ran. They had one of the common ingredients that I saw was they had great coaching staffs. Everybody on that top and bottom could coach. And they accepted their responsibility and went after it full-fledged. And the next thing they had was discipline on their team. And discipline meaning the way they acted in the classroom, in the lunchroom, off-season. But more importantly than anything is that discipline had to be carried over into the weight room. And if I had a kid say, I don't want to work out today, I'd say, okay, you ain't got to play next year. And they used to say, Coach, I used to use this on them all the time. And I use the word discipline because you got to be disciplined to do it every day. Well, one day I won't forget, it was a Friday we were getting out for Christmas holidays and the season was over. And most people just say, when we come back after Christmas, we're going to hit the weights hard. Well, as soon as the season was over, we started on Monday. Whatever day, if we missed the first round of the playoffs, we would end that Monday. I wasn't going to let a day go by. Well, this was Friday before we got out, on the day we got out for Christmas holidays. And they said, Coach, let us go to the gym and shoot basketball today. It's Christmas. And I said, I tell you what you do. You call Americus and you call Dodge County. If they're not in the weight room today, I'll give y'all the day off and we'll go out there and play basketball. They said, oh, Coach. And they got in the weight room. But, you have to do that because that's what your competitions do. If you're not, if you're not measuring up to your competition, you're not going to make it. It's just not going to happen. And that's how, that's the thing I went in there with. And it wasn't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. You had to do it. I hung my hat on that, and it was a pretty good formula. But I copycatted all those guys I just told you about. When I was a young guy, I got to tell you this story. It's a great story. I'm at a coaching clinic, and I'm sitting in a restaurant, and I'm sitting there with Dan Pitts, Rodney Walker was another one I studied. And Rodney and I are great friends. Robert Davis was sitting there. Who else? Bobby Gruen was there. Billy Henderson was there. And, golly, I drew a blank. What was the guy's name? It was at Lincoln County, Larry Campbell. I drew a blank on Larry's name. But anyway, they were sitting there, and I'm sitting there. And I'm like a first or second year head coach. And these guys saying, yeah, and in 72, I played such and such for the state championship. Yeah, in 82, I played, whatever the year was. They were saying, yeah, we played such and such for the quarterfinals and all that. And I said, here I am trying to get into playoffs. And I need to get up and leave. They said, wow, what you talking about? I said, y'all talking about state championships and runner-ups and region championships. Here I am trying to win a first region championship. I'm way out of my league right here at this table. And they all laughed. They got a big kick out of it. But it was true. I just studied those guys, and I'd sit there and keep my mouth shut just to listen to them. And I learned a lot just hanging around those guys. Poor Dan Pitts, he hated to see me coming to clinics because I'd beeline to him and ask him a million questions. He'd say, he'd look at me and he'd just shake his head sometimes.
You'd wear him out.
I would. I'd ask him. I know he thought, who is this knucklehead?
That's how we learn.
That's how I did it. You could sit on the sideline and not ask questions, not figure it out, and get your tail beat on Friday night, or figure it out and try to do the best you could with what you had to work with and try to win games. And that's what I tried to do.
And you won a lot of them. Who were some of your favorite guys to compete against, and just guys that over the years you coached against and y'all had mutual respect, or you were even friends off the field? Because these days, a lot of guys, they don't even talk at the 50-yard line like we used to.
See, I'll tell you a story. Golly, I can't remember. I'm awful with names sometimes. Barry, he was at West Lawrence. Barry, and he did a super job. They ran the split back there. When I moved to Dublin, I didn't know this when I bought the house, but he was my back door neighbor. So he was at West Lawrence and I was at Dublin, and I didn't even know that. Well, I found that out. Somebody said, Barry lives right now. I can't think of Barry's name. Golly, that makes me so mad. He's going to kill me if he hears this podcast. But he was a good football coach, and we got to be real good friends. And we were speaking at the Rotary Club there, which is a really big club there in Dublin. And they had all four coaches, the Trinity, East Lawrence, and West Lawrence, and me. And I got up there and talking. They were talking about our opening game. And Barry came out preseason rated number 1. They were good, man. They were split back there. They ran that thing like perfection. And I told him after the thing.
Barry Walton.
Barry Walton. Barry, forgive me if you listen to this, buddy. I just drew a blank. Some of these old brain cells are dead, I guess. But anyway, I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you something, Barry. And he looked at me kind of funny. And Barry didn't really know me at the time. I said, I'm going to tell you something. If you beat me Friday night, I'm going to throw my trash over the back fence. He said, well, if you beat me, expect trash being thrown back over the other way. I said, I wouldn't expect it any other way. And so we laughed, and we ended up upsetting them. We beat them 14-7 or 7-6, whatever it was. It was a tight ball game, but we upset them. And he and I joked about that, but I won't forget. He and I ended up being really good friends. And I think the world of him. And he's in administration. I think he's retired now, but he was in administration at one time. But he had gotten out of the coaching, and he was around the Gainesville area up there somewhere. But he was a good guy. But I didn't. You talk about rivalries and things like that. I told somebody. Matter of fact, I told Barry this. I said, Barry, you want to ride to the region meeting Tuesday? I'll pick you up and we'll just take off. And he said, You'll ask me to ride with you? I said, Barry, I ain't got to hate you. Want to beat your eyes out on Friday night. We still be friends, but I don't understand guys have to hate somebody to try to beat them. I never understood that. And I said, yeah, I'll pick you up. We'll ride down to region meeting together. And he said, all right. Well, that's how we got to be friends. And I've done that with several guys. I don't have to hate somebody to try to win on Friday night. That's our business. But you ain't got to hate somebody. Some guys can't stand it if you don't hate them and they don't hate you. And I just don't understand that. I just never have understood that. And I choose to do it the other way. And it was worked out okay for me, Now, there was some that got under my skin and made me mad, and I'd want to wear their fanny out because of something they said or did, but nah. Most of the time it was mutual friendship. And other guys that I played against and coached against, I'd have to say Rodney Walker was a good one. He was at Peach and I was at Cornell in Dublin, and we had some battles there. Let's say Alton Shell, who was an Americans. Bless Alton Hart, he's gone now. But boy, we had some battles. They called it the Battle of Flint River Battle, or Battle of Flint. And because the Flint River runs right on the county line there, and boy, we had some battles with them now. They had some great teams, and we had some great teams. And it was a slobber knocker when we played now on Friday night. But as a whole, I just took each guy and tried to compete. And no matter who he was, I didn't let his reputation of being a great coach or a poor coach or whatever affect me. I had to do what I had to do to try to win, and that's what I did.
Well, I
And
remember one thing that I really enjoyed is when you would call the state championship games with GPB. That was I
yeah,
don't know how fun that was for you, but that I really enjoyed that.
well, you know what? I enjoyed it, but it got to be it got to be a headache too. Uh, when they tell you, okay, your game's at 9 o'clock, but you got to be in the dome by 6 o'clock, and I'm sitting there, what? And uh, yeah, you have to do makeup. Well, I had never had makeup put on me before, and I didn't know about it. I didn't understand it. Well, I go in, and they got a makeup artist in there, and they doing that spray on makeup and all, and you can't scratch your chin. If you itch it, you can't scratch your forehead. It was crazy, but that was kind of fun about it. But I did enjoy doing that. Uh, I tell you what, though, you can if you don't say the right thing, sometime it'll come back to haunt you. I've had people call my hand on things I said in games. I won't ever forget. I was doing. I think it was a AAA game. It was Peach County and Riverdale. And Riverdale had a girl kicker. And GPT TV, that's all they wanted to talk about. Well, they got to me and says, Sam, what do you think about da da da? And I can't remember the little girl's name, young lady's name, excuse me. And I said, look, this game ain't about, I can't remember the girl's name, Joyce. I'll just use her name, Joyce. And I said, this is not about her. This is about those offensive linemen and defensive linemen on that line of scrimmage. And I promise you, Rodney Walker ain't worried about her kicking the ball, because if they don't score, she won't be a factor. And Rodney Walker's trying to keep her on that sideline all night long. I can tell you that right now. And I got a kind of big chuckle out of it, but it came back to haunt me because a coach on that staff said something to me about it. And I was very complimentary about her sticking to it and staying with it and all that kind of deal. And I still feel that way about it, because that was a big thing back then. And she legitimately could kick extra points. It wasn't a fluke that she was there. She was there because she had worked hard, and I admired that about her. And I said that on TV. But Roddy Walker wasn't worried about her. He was worried about them crossing that goal line. And I said that, and it came back to haunt me a little bit. But it's okay. I did it as earnestly as I could and as respectful as I could. And I meant no disrespect, but I enjoyed doing that. And it was fun. It really was fun. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about. I tell you one thing, it's hard for me to do when you're not a very bright guy. And I don't know how smart I am, but I know this. It's hard for me to talk while somebody's talking into my ear. And those producers down in the truck, I'd be saying, yeah, we got, they'd ask me a question. And I'd say, yeah, they're in this formation and they've been running this play. And the guy said, step it up, coach, finish up, close it. We got to go to commercial. And I'm sitting there, blah, 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 blah. I couldn't talk with somebody talking in my ear. And how those guys do it, I don't know, because they're constantly talking in your ear while you're trying to say and get a point across.
Well, it was just fun, to have a coach finally get a coach's perspective on there. To me, you'd think they'd have sense enough to know if you're gonna have an old ball coach on there, we're gonna say what we say.
That's exactly right.
You kind of get what you asked for.
And I told them that when they asked me, and I got up there and I told them, guys, man, I said, look, now I'm a football coach. I'm gonna talk like a football coach. I'm gonna use ugly words or anything like that, but I'm gonna talk like a football coach.
Yeah.
And they said, that's what we want. That's what we want. We want those people. We want our audience to see that and hear that. I said, okay.
But I remember that. That was awesome. So over the years, a lot of things have changed. I know you're out of it and you're enjoying, your family and your golf time. But what are some things as you still watch and everything that have changed about the high school game that so much that you look at and go, I didn't think that would happen, or you just didn't see it going that way.
The biggest thing that I see is now strength coaching and strength strength programs have gotten so much better, and the kids are not weaker; they're stronger than they've ever been. But the biggest thing that I see that I have in the football games that I've gone to, and I'll go to 3 or 4 a year, maybe 5. But the biggest thing that I've noticed is they don't hit anybody like we hit back in the day. I know the head injuries and all that. I understand where that's coming from, but the way they teach tackling now versus the way we taught it, I don't see the physicality of that. Now they still play good hard nosed football, but I just don't see the physicality like I used to. There were some cats that we used to play against, and I had some really good players over the years, and I promise you, they knock your head off.
Yeah,
and,
that region you were in Cordele, you were going to get struck.
Yeah, well, when I got to Dublin, we were playing Thomasville and some of those cats.
Oh yeah, you were going to get struck.
You be looking at your ear hole. Watch out. Yeah. And if you were going to play those guys, you had to match up the physicality. You hear Kirby Smart say it all the time. I'm glad to hear him say it because that's what the game of football is. It's a physical game, and that's what I pushed my teams toward, or at least tried to, and it paid off for me over the years. But that's one of the big things that I've noticed. And the throwing the ball all over the park. I came up, when Vince Dooley was coaching and all those guys, Bear Bryant and all the guys at Tennessee, they were 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Well, that's what we were taught. And we'd go to those colleges and learn that stuff. So that's what we mimicked. Well, now all these guys that got in this college game, they're throwing the ball all over the park, and they're running zones and stuff like that. And all that's good. All that's good. But I've learned a lot from it. But there's different ways to skin a cat. And I wasn't against throwing. The last 2 or 3 years that I was in it, I threw the football a good bit. And I told my quarterback, I said, I'll throw it a lot if you can complete it. If you can't complete it, we're going to run the football. And so I put the pressure back on them because they're the quarterback America. They don't think he's not Johnny Unitas or whoever, But I see the difference in that. But it's nothing wrong with it. It's a different type of entertainment. The difference is I don't think it's as physical as it was. There's parts of it is, but as a whole, it's not near as physical. I told somebody last year, matter of fact, last football season, I watched. I'm trying to think how many different teams, and it was all Bleckley County and who they were playing. So I would say there's 5 or 6 different teams that I watched. Probably more than that, but I never really saw somebody knock somebody's block off. Now, they got them on the ground, and they tackled them, and they hustled, and I did all that. But they just didn't physically, knock somebody's head off.
Yeah, just run through somebody.
Yeah, they just wouldn't do it. Didn't do it. And it's because the game has changed now. And the safety aspect of it is the common factor there. And that's not all wrong now because I tell people this, my biggest fear as a football coach was having a kid break his neck or get his spinal column hurt while I was coaching him. It scared me to death. And that's the reason I taught it so hard. I coached it hard about tackling it properly and putting keeping your face up, your head up. And, all the studies show that injuries happen when your head was down. And I would just dog them about head being down. And but that it doesn't, going back to what you asked me, just because it's a little different now doesn't make it any softer game. It just means that it's not as physical as it was. And that's kind of hard to understand for me to say it that way, but it just not as, I use the word tough as it was back in the day. And I think a lot of older coaches, now a lot of young coaches may argue that. I'm sure they would. They're going to defend their turf just like I defended my turf. But that was, you asked me my opinion, that's my opinion. But I never saw anybody in the last 2 years not the stem one and you know what out of somebody. It just didn't happen. Doesn't happen as often. Let me put it that way.
Well, you came from a tree, arguably the Conrad Nix and Charlie Winslet tree, and you kind of had your own tree. So who are some of the assistant coaches that over the years that you're proud to? I mean, you can't name them all because you've had so many, but some guys that have gone on that you stay in touch with and keep up with, that they may be retired or they still doing it.
Well, Buddy Woodard is one. He was a defense coordinator of mine. Sean Pope, that was up at Putnam County.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Collins, who is down at Tatnall County now. Pat might be the smartest, one of the best football coaches I've been around in my life. And everywhere he's been successful, and he's smart, hard working, get after it type guy. Let's see, Clay Hill he was my first defensive coordinator, and he and I had coached together for 3 years, so I knew how good he was. I just turned the defense over to him, and I never looked back. And then when I left Court Hill, he got to be the head coach. And he ended up being in a private school down in South Georgia and at Pinewood, and he did a terrific job. But I've really had a lot of coaches that I just really thought a lot of that's gone on and done really, really good things, really good coaches. Some of them tried to be head coaches and just didn't pan out for them. That don't mean they weren't good coaches now. That just means they didn't handle all the other mess that comes along with being a head coach as well as, and they didn't like doing it. I'll be honest with you. A lot of them told me, no, this is not cut out for me. I'd rather coach my group and be ready on Friday night. And a lot of coaches that way, and that's okay. Those kind of guys are needed. They don't have egos. They just want to work and do right and do what the program wants. I used to tell my kids when I was assistant coach, I said, let me tell you something. We're doing a drill. We're going to be the best group and best run drills on this football team, on this field today. We're going to make that head coach look good. That's our job. That's my job, is to teach you football to make you so that you'll make that head coach look good on Friday night. And that's the way I told kids that. And that's the way, as an assistant, I handled it. And I was a detailed person. And I don't care what you do in life. I don't care what business you're in, coaching. We're talking about coaching now. If you don't dot your I and cross your T, you will not be as successful as the guy that does cross his T and dot his I. I promise you. You got to attend to the details. Details matter. And if you're young guys out there listening, number one, you be a detail person. And don't ever compromise the discipline and the details of what you're teaching and coaching. And you will be fine. You'll end up being winners.
Well,
that's just the way it is.
Well, Coach, you always paid attention to detail. You always ran a disciplined program, and you're definitely one of the legends in our state. And I sure do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's always, I tell you, this game been good to me. And if anything I can do to help it, I'd be more than happy to do it. And I've told people that over the years. Sometimes when you get out, put out in the pasture, so to speak, you feel like, golly, nobody cares about you. Then you give me a call and it make me feel good, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate what you do, because if a lot of young coaches will listen to your podcast, they will learn something from the guys you have on there. You take some of it and throw it out the window, but a lot of it you'll use.
Well, Coach, I sure do appreciate it.
Thank you.